Latest coaching search whispers, coaching search intel. Let's start with LSU. Seems like a lot's happened for nothing to have really happened over the last 24, 36 hours. This is the time of year, by the way, in case you haven't noticed. And those of you down in Louisiana, you understand terminology used when a tropical system is headed your way. Every meteorologist talks in 12-hour increments. Normally they say 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. But when you're talking about a hurricane approaching, it's 24, 48, 72-hour windows. And when you look at the cone, the projected path, it's 24, 36, 48, 72. That's how the hours count down until a landfalling tropical system. Well, in coaching search terms, that's how we talk. We talk about them as if it's a tropical system. What's changed in the last 12 to 24 to 36 hours? What's going to change over the next 12 to 24 to 36? Well, I don't know that a lot is going to change on the surface at LSU, but I had some of my fine LSU brethren hit me up on the iJosh today, and believe it or not, they were a little mad. Maybe not mad, maybe frustrated. And their frustration, friends, was there's no news. And I want to ask anyone out there down in Cajun country this: what kind of good news could you have possibly gotten today? What kind of good news? Because no coach worth his salt is available to take your job right now. No coach worth his salt is available to make a comment on it. And why? I think the answer is obvious. They're all tied up in meaningful seasons of their own. So you were never going to hear anything today that was at least going to meet your criteria for qualifying as good news. If you heard something today, it was going to be because some guy was going to leave a studio job. You know, like me. You don't want me taking your job. There are a lot of guys out of work right now. Yeah, they could have taken your job today. I don't really think you're interested in those as your plan A, B, or C. So it's not a bad thing, and it doesn't mean that things aren't going on behind the scenes. I want to run down this list of names, though, that we have seen so far at least publicly attached to the LSU job. And I want you to spot the difference. Mel Tucker, that's one. Jimbo Fisher, that's two. And Lincoln Riley, those are three high-profile names that at least publicly you have seen tied to the LSU job. What has happened? What's the difference? Which one stands out? Well, Mel Tucker is about to have Forrest Gump money. We're going to talk about him in a second. So we know that's not happening, or at least we think we know that's not happening. Jimbo Fisher, in his own unique way, said, no, I'm not taking the job. It took like 5 or 10 minutes because that is his own unique way. But Jimbo Fisher shot that thing down. Lincoln Riley, so far, is just kind of hanging out in Norman, and he's, made the usual, I want to be here, you guys know how I feel about Oklahoma, but there has been no contract extension there. There has been no direct shooting down of LSU rumors. Why? Because Lincoln Riley is still involved in this thing, and LSU is still involved with Lincoln Riley. That is not huge news. That's been established for a little while now. But if you ever want to know about the validity or whether something is a smokescreen, that's what you need to look at. See, Jimbo wasn't going to be used as a smokescreen. Jimbo Fisher said, no. That's essentially what Jimbo Fisher said. And there would be a lot less drawl in it, but Lincoln Riley could do that today. Lincoln Riley is not doing that because, as I said the other night, I think for the past 3 shows I've said this. As of this hour, I think there's a lot going on in Baton Rouge and there's a lot going on in Norman, Oklahoma. And that's probably where things stand, and who knows, when the sun sets this time tomorrow, they may still be there. Unfortunately, in Nashville, the sun will set at 4:30 in the afternoon for reasons that I have no control over, but sure do wish I did. Speaking of Mel Tucker, I did want to speak on him. A lot of speaking happening. Mel Tucker is reportedly about to sign a massive contract extension with Michigan State. How massive are we talking here? Well, it looks to be about 10 years, $95 million. So I had Stats and Info crunch the numbers. And that comes out to $9.5 million a year, they tell me. That's a lot of money. As I said, that's Forrest Gump money. That's big time money. That is right in line with what Nick Saban makes. That's north of what I think Dabo Swinney makes. And that has led a lot of you to ask me in the inbox if I think Mel Tucker would be overpaid making $9.5 million per year. And my answer is, of course he wouldn't be overpaid. No different than in our industry. A lot of people think, believe it or not, some people in our industry are overpaid. Well, they're not overpaid. They're not underpaid. They're just paid. And in the coaching world, you're worth what someone's willing to pay you. That's how value kind of operates. And if you're being underpaid, according to your criteria, and you believe that, you take yourself out onto the open market and you let the market tell you whether you're being underpaid or not. There's some coaches right now that are about to renegotiate because relative to market forces changing, their old, adequately paid now becomes an underpaid situation. This stuff's constantly evolving and changing, but I want to go to Mel Tucker specifically. That's a whole lot of money. Does his resume in historic terms indicate that he's worth that kind of money? No, it doesn't. But that's not what we're going by here. The scale slides a lot, and the economics change a lot. But it's not necessarily merit-based, resume-based as much as it is how we determine your value. That's how we're basing it. Michigan State has decided Mel Tucker's their guy. Now here's what just humors me. I'm all for Mel Tucker and anyone for that matter getting every dime they can possibly get. So definitely don't take this as a negative or pejorative in any nature towards Mel Tucker. But I'm always entertained by coaching searches and by this entire season because it's very cutthroat. And if you wade out into these waters where you are being discussed with the most prestigious jobs in America, or if you are one of those jobs and you're going after the biggest names in America, there are two avenues. One of them is recruiting and the other one is elite coaching searches where you really got to roll your sleeves up and you got to have the knife in your back pocket and you got to be ready to go fight someone because that's what this turns into. Michigan State pulled out the knife and it was actually a sword and no one wanted to match it. And so they're proactively locking their guy down. Michigan State's never done this before. This is a huge move for Michigan State. But it's been entertaining for me to watch because I'm glad they're doing it. I was up there a couple of weeks ago. They deserve it. Love Michigan State. Glad they're doing it. Here's what's entertaining. This is privately funded. And what's entertaining is there are a lot of people out there with net worths associated with various programs that technically could do this. And a lot of them brag about being able to do it. Only a fraction of them are willing to step up the plate and actually do it. Michigan State's got some deep pockets up there, and they're willing to step up and do something about it. They've also fulfilled a magnitude of NIL-based deals with their student athletes up there. So they're about it. A lot of people talk about it. Michigan State has been about it. What's entertaining is if you look at this particular sector of life, it doesn't match anything else in these people's lives. So these people, in order to get to the status they are in life, just strictly in terms of economics, they have had to live by a different code. The fiscal responsibility and the economic principle that you have to adhere to amass the kind of value that these people have in their bank accounts to even qualify them to be involved in making a dent in these kinds of coaching searches and extensions, it's just different. They're living a little bit different than you and I. And then you inject emotion and passion and competition in sports into it. And a lot of the economic and financial sense, it just flies out the window. And it's so fun to watch because you're making decisions and you're paying money for, I'm not going to call Mel Tucker an asset, but a coach in a generic sense is an asset to a program. And you're just throwing money around that you never would in any other walk of life. It's so fun to watch. Some people think it's bad. Some people think it's good. It's good for us. I know that. It's good for us. So it's real fun, but here's the downside. The downside, contrary to what your local sports writer may tell you, is not how it erodes away at the integrity of the sport. Nah, you can miss me with that. But here's what it does. It makes people forget sometimes you're only able to get 100% of Mel Tucker. You pay him a few more zeros per year, you don't all of a sudden get 150% of him. That's impossible. And here's what I hope Michigan State understands, just like I always talk about with any other program. Just because you add some dollars on someone's paycheck does not mean you buy more than 100% of their ability. It's capped at 100%. Mel Tucker is who he is. Michigan State is capable under Mel Tucker of what Michigan State is capable of under Mel Tucker. I am not accusing Michigan State of this. I'm telling you in the past. I'm looking at other major programs around the country that recently made moves. There's been this idea that if we pay more, we can buy the ability to cut corners. We can buy the ability to microwave our way to a title instead of cooking our way to a title, which is the way everyone has to do it. I don't care how deep your coffers are. And it is a fool's errand to expect things to happen like that. So what I hope is avoided at Michigan State is the notion that since we're paying this guy more, that all of a sudden he's going to deliver more for us now than he was going to be able to under his old contract. That's not the way it works. You paid the money you're going to pay him to keep him around. But when I say him, that's what you kept. You kept him around. He's the same dude today as he was yesterday, as he was the day before, as he will be tomorrow. But that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It's good on Michigan State for stepping up. And I can tell you it made a lot of people in the Big Ten nervous because Michigan State's not supposed to be the program that does that. Ohio State is, Penn State is, Michigan is. Michigan State, they're supposed to settle for their role. And their role is supposed to be what they are this weekend. They're supposed to go into the shoe as a 19-point dog. They're not supposed to win, but they're supposed to provide adequate pushback to where you get the big boys ready down the road for conference championship Saturday in the playoff. That's Michigan State's role. The only problem is no one cleared that with Michigan State, and they're not accepting that anymore. That's good for them. Lane Kiffin was never going to watch this cycle go by quietly. He just wasn't. Lane Kiffin himself is not of that nature. Jimmy Sexton, who represents him, is certainly not of that nature. And so today, like clockwork, with all the other busyness going around in the coaching search market and the coaching carousel and whatever you want to use to describe it, we get some reports that Lane Kiffin, if offered the Miami job, which, friends, is not even available yet, but if offered, he'd take it. He'd take it. That's the word out there. I was having a back and forth with Director Colin, who is real, contrary to the debate raging in the chat right now, and producer Jesse. No one has even argued the validity of Jesse's existence yet. It's coming, though. And we were arguing about what this move would be. Just this theoretical move. If Lane Kiffin were to leave Ole Miss for Miami, would it make sense? Now, I caught a lot of heat the other night because I said Oregon's a better job than Miami. Some people even literally thought that my entire opinion hinged on the access to private aviation. You know, I had like dozens of people say, well, idiot, hey, idiot, you're, Y-O-U-R, stupid, you don't have to fly in South Florida. You can just drive to all the schools. Just like 30 minutes. It wasn't literal. I mean, it kind of was literal. It was an example of the investment that exists at Oregon. It wasn't a literal list of what you have to top. I digress. There was an argument earlier today, and there will be as this moves forward, and Manny Diaz is probably let go, and Lane Kiffin's name is probably brought into the equation. There will be an argument. Is the Ole Miss job better than the Miami job? I will probably save that for when the time comes. I think there is a solid argument to be made on both sides. I don't doubt that Lane Kiffin's interested in having his name involved in this, but it could be just as equal an opportunity that he wants his name involved in kind of doing the same thing Mel Tucker just did at Ole Miss as he is actually making the move to Coral Gables. So it still, to me, remains to be seen how valid that is, knowing how Jimmy Sexton has worked this thing in the past. But simple concepts here. I mean, if you're going to play the other side of this fence, very simple concepts in play. Lane Kiffin has let it be known. I can tell you this for sure. Lane Kiffin let it be known when he got to Oxford, Mississippi. He didn't plan on retiring there, to put it mildly. And so, if that's still where his mind is a few years later, you have got a combination of things coming together. You've got him rattling off, for all we know, the best season he'll ever hang at Ole Miss. And then you've also got the most volatile, unstable, in a good way for a coach, market out there that we've seen, the most wide open coaching market. And so if you feel that way, you'd be foolish not to dive in. I mean, even if you were a little hesitant, if I'm your representative, I'm telling you, you told me this 3 years ago. If you still feel that way, you better dive in right now, because I can't guarantee you, here's the word, I can't guarantee you these confluences of events will ever happen again for you. So Lane Kiffin's going to be a name that we probably talk about a lot here over the coming weeks. It is also widely believed that the Georgia staff could suffer several losses if all these jobs open up. If Miami opens, if Florida opens, or if a combination of them open, what's going to happen is you're going to hear names like Dan Lanning, who is the defensive coordinator at Georgia. You'll hear names like Del McGee, who used to coach at Carver in Columbus when I was down there. So he has rocketed up the college boards. And it's not that those guys stand a shot at landing Florida or landing Miami. What's going to happen is inevitably when Miami hires someone or Florida hires someone or LSU hires someone, and then those assistant coaching roles get filled, there are going to be these other openings. That's why these are called keystone programs, because the moves made there impact and have a ripple effect on the rest of the sport. So there are going to be some down ballot jobs, if you will, open up that may be well suited for the Dan Lannings of the world, or maybe the Del McGees of the world. I was over on The Athletic today. I believe it was Seth Emerson and Bruce Feldman were writing about this very subject, about the Georgia coaching staff, and I thought they brought up a couple of interesting points that I've actually heard from other folks. They've kind of phrased it the same way. The Ted Lasso effect in this stuff is real, and I think also the Sam Pittman effect in this is real. One of those is an actual person, the other is not. A second Ted Lasso reference this week. I don't know how this happened. The Ted Lasso effect is simply this, right in line with the famous show. It is the ability to go find someone who may not specialize on one side of the ball or the other side of the ball, but what they do is they bring an energy to the program, and then they hire the best assistants they can, and they carry out all the dirty work. They're the mercenaries. You're just the face of the program, and it's okay if you don't go and dominate all the chalk talk clinics you go to. We'll get coaches in here for that. We want the leadership. We want the positivity. That is how a guy like maybe Adele McGee would rocket up to being a head coach. That combined with the Sam Pittman effect. And this is another thing they mentioned, and it's another thing that a lot of people in the industry are talking about. The perception has changed as to what has to be on your resume in order to get a shot. Used to be that there were just certain boxes you have to have checked. Well, now a lot of people, not just on the Georgia staff, a lot of people and a lot of representatives of those people are pointing to Sam Pittman saying, remember back when you may have thought you had to have been a coordinator or a head coach before to get a major job? Well, let me introduce you to one Samuel Pittman. Resides in Fayetteville, Arkansas. They're doing really good this year. Anyone notice that? How many games did he coordinate the offense for Georgia? The next one would be the first one. A lot of people are using that train of thought. I think it's going to be effective. And so the Georgia staff, they're going to lose some folks. I don't know how badly it's going to hurt them, only because the underneath support roles that Kirby Smart's filled out, it leaves you with such a ready-made replacement. I don't even think Kirby Smart would have to leave Athens to replace a lot of the guys if and when he loses them, because they're that prepared for it. They were prepared for it previously. I mean, some of these guys were elevated. And so I don't think it's going to hurt them. It certainly doesn't help to lose guys. I don't think it's going to hurt them nearly as much as maybe it's going to be perceived if and when it immediately happens. So that's the latest. I assume once we get out of this weekend, we'll probably hear a lot more. I imagine we will broach this subject again on Sunday night.